Welcome to Sausage on a Fork, a podcast dedicated to the UK's longest running children's drama programme, Grange Hill. My name's Neil, and in each episode I'll interview a former cast member about their life before, during and after their time on the programme. Okay, welcome to the latest episode of Sausage on a Fork, and I am absolutely delighted to say that I have been joined for this episode by none other than Nigel Douglas, who was a director of Grange Hill in series 15, 16, 17 and 18. Nigel, welcome to Sausage on a Fork.
Thanks, Neil. Thanks for the welcome.
Oh, not at all, not at all. Well, normally, Nigel, when it's a member of the cast, I ask them how they first got into acting. But obviously, with you being a director, how did you sort of get into television?
The $1 million question. I started writing plays when I was at university, and then realized everyone was destroying my plays, so I started directing my own plays. And then I applied to what was then called a trainee assistant producer scheme at the BBC, but you needed a sponsor, a department, an exec producer to sort of support you. And I was it's one of those sort of sliding doors, open doors moment, really. The executive producer of Jack and Nori, Angela Beeching, had seen one of my plays, and my letter got to her, and she was willing to take a chance on me. So I joined, as a very baby director at the age of 22.
Wow.
Obviously knew absolutely nothing at all. And sort of started learning and cut my teeth on Jack and Nori, which couldn't have been better, really.
Yeah.
Because sort of working with well-known names, but learning what to shoot on a drawing,
Yeah.
So and she was sort of an old school BBC exec producer who took no prisoners. So I soon kind of got the hang of it, really.
So you've said there, Jack and Nori. When I looked at the people that you were the director for on Jack and Nori, and you said, well, no. So I mean, Victoria Wood, Paul McGann, Christopher Timothy, Nick Wilton, Linda Bellingham, Rory McGrath, Danny John. It goes on and on and on. John Sessions. Do you ever feel like, why am I telling them what to do? Is there ever a sort of like, do you ever get like that? I mean, or did you at that time? Like,
definitely at the beginning. I mean, absolute classic imposter syndrome. I was a boy from a small village in Worcestershire, and I didn't know anybody in television. I was very wide-eyed definitely for a few weeks, if not a few months, and was certainly daunted by working with some of those bigger names. But you just got to get over it, because that's what it is. And bit by bit, this exec producer who I mentioned, Angela Beeching, she on my very first Jack and Nori, I was sat in the gallery, which I'm sure you know, with lots of monitors and pictures, and all the cameras blick up and all the stuff. We used to start at 10 o'clock then in the morning, and at 10 o'clock I was sat there watching all the monitors come up, and she just leaned over to me and said, "Nothing will happen till you speak."
right.
And that was my first big lesson in what directing was.
So, because my thought of someone who's a director is they sit there and they tell everyone what they should do. Is that what it is?
Yes, in lots of ways. I mean, of course, filmmaking, and obviously the much bigger stuff I've done, further down my career, is increasingly collaborative, because the budgets are very big, and the actors are very big, and the ambition is very big. But yeah, right across the board, really, you have an idea of what it looks like, sounds like, feels like. I think the easiest way I always think to think about directing is everything that you see as a viewer on screen is really the director's doing, from the casting of the actors, but completely undoable without brilliant designers and camera people and so on and so forth.
Yeah. So I also know you mentioned about the assistant producer. So were you the assistant producer on the satellite show? Have I got that right?
I was, yeah. I was.
So I remember watching the satellite show. The satellite show was another kids' TV program with because obviously satellite and cable was really coming to the fore then, and television was changing, and it was a kind of a kid's spoof on stuff like that. But I remember the host of that was a puppet
It
called
was.
CD, who bore a striking resemblance to Andy Crane.
Ah.
Do you know if that's intentional?
I don't remember that being directly intentional. Certainly, we stole from Max Headroom, who was, I
Right.
don't know if you remember that, was
Yeah,
around
yeah, yeah.
the time. Um, you're the only person I've ever spoken to who's ever watched a satellite show. Yeah, so we shot that in Manchester and with Carla Mendoza, was one of the sort of actors, yeah, led by a puppet.
Yeah. Lisa
And
Maxwell was on that as well.
Lisa Maxwell was on it, yeah, and
Yeah.
quite
Nick
it
Nick
was quite
Wilton.
good
Yeah.
fun. Nick did it, and we had some bands on there, and so that was really my first. So via going live, that was
Right.
my
Wow.
first sort of outing really outside of Jackanory was the satellite show.
Blimey. So going live as well. I mean, like Saturday morning telly was always looked like chaos.
It was.
Certainly after Tiz was, Swap Shop was a bit more sedate. And then Tiz was came along and sort of everyone was like, that's the type of thing we need to be doing. But like, was it like you was going live like chaos? Like,
Um, it's sort of managed chaos. I mean, it's an
right.
interesting one because we sort of always wanted it to look a bit chaotic and a
Yeah.
bit thrown together, but actually it was very well put together. And I during my training period went from Saturday Superstore into going live, so I was very lucky to be part of the team that started going live.
Right.
Um, yeah, and I mean Sarah and Philip, were fantastic
Mm.
hosts and very skilled.
Right.
But we had, the biggest bands, biggest politicians, biggest sports stars. It
Yeah.
was an extraordinary experience. You'd be sat in the prop room with a cup of tea with Madonna on one side and Gordon Brown on the other,
Yeah.
chatting away about, a football match or something.
Yeah. So were you there when Elliot Fletcher rang in and spoke to Five Star and like called them or give them all sorts of abuse down the phone?
I don't remember.
Right.
I know that event, but I mean, I was definitely did an episode that Five Star did, but
Right.
whether it was that one, I think they did two or three appearances on the
Right.
show.
Yeah.
I don't remember that. No.
Okay. Okay. Because that's what like brought in like the delay, isn't it? Like that incident. And there was Matt Bianco. It happened to Matt Bianco was another band that someone rang in and gave them abuse down the phone. The Elliot Fletcher one, I think, is the bigger one, the 5 star one that
Yeah.
everyone remembers.
I
Uh,
mean, they sort of have to get through. I mean, it was very unsophisticated then, but we had a sort of bank of telephone answering people,
right.
and they decided whether, the person they were speaking
Yeah.
to was sane and whether or not they could go through and talk to the guest or whatever. So, yeah, I know a few got through.
Brilliant. Yeah. So we'll move on to Grange Hill. We'll talk
Okay.
about that. So you became one of the directors Grange Hill, which series 15, which went on air in 1992. Now, when I was looking through, we've messaged a little bit about this before the podcast. You were only on 23 episodes.
Only
23
sounds a lot for
episodes.
me.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's the thing. For me, like who's not involved, it just seems strange that the director would change every 4 episodes. Is that
Oh,
is that
yeah,
right?
but that's the convention across the whole industry.
Right.
So, generally, a director will do 2 hours of material, one director. So if it's a series of six, then there'll be three directors working on it.
Right.
On Grange Hill, I think we made 20 a year,
Yeah.
maybe. I can't quite remember.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
So there were five of us. Yeah. Or you would do a block of four, then miss a block and another block of four,
Yeah.
and another director would alternate. Um, how it was 23, not 24, I'm not sure. I suspect I did a special which we probably won't talk about, but that took the show to East Germany,
Yeah.
um, which won BAFTA, Best Children's Show, and that might have been a sort of one-off, I think. So that
Right.
might count for the missing episode.
So is that difficult though when episodes have already been filmed and storylines are in the middle? Is it difficult? Do you have to then familiarize yourself with the scripts and beforehand?
Yeah, yeah. So you
Right.
work with the writers and the script editors and producers. to see what comes before. Obviously, ideally, which I think I was quite lucky. Sometimes if you do the first four episodes of a series, obviously it's a lot easier because you
Yeah,
start. But yeah, so you work out what's going before, what the tone of yours should be, and of course where you're going to leave it because someone else is going to pick up what you do. So if you
yeah,
play a scene that's sort of more emotional than was expected, then that will maybe have a ripple on how the aftermath of that could
yeah,
be. So so yeah, but we sort of get used to it, as I say, really, and it's not too bad on Grange Hill because there weren't too many episodes. On something like EastEnders, obviously, you might have to go back 6 months to
yeah.
find the threads for your storylines. So that's
Wow.
much more homework.
Yeah, and you're coming in for series 15. With there's been a lot going on in that series. You know, we had the teenage pregnancy, and we had all the gang fighting and stuff like that. And obviously, one of your episodes was the aftermath of when Justine's boyfriend had been killed at Liam. So obviously you weren't there for the night shoot because I got Richard Drew was on. I was gobsmacked when you see when Liam gets killed and you know he's there under basically under the wheel of a van, which I've seen a photograph of, and it was just a BBC van, and that just ruined the illusion for me.
It's all smoke and mirrors, all of it.
Yeah, yeah. So that I mean that was like one of the things that you know you were like it was like the funeral scene. We didn't actually see the funeral, but we saw sort of Justine sitting in the church, and there was also a bit where the public school boys visited, and it was
Oh, yeah. So Mark, yeah, who's gone
yeah,
on to
Mark
a very
Warren.
big, yeah, big
Yeah,
actor now, Mark. Yeah, it was his first job. So I think he was 16 then.
wow,
And yeah, that was another big moment of me realizing what TV could do because part of the funeral was at a church. We were filming
yeah,
at a church in Watford. Um, and it was meant to be spring, I think.
right.
And we were filming in January, and there was snow on the ground. And I said naively to the design department, "Well, we can't film here because there's snow everywhere." And sure enough, when we turned up, they'd cleared it all off, put leaves, stapled leaves to the trees, turned it
Wow,
into spring, and that was the beginning of my realization that anything is possible in television.
yeah, wow. But then that, yeah, as you say there, like you know, the other bit with the public school boys with Mark Warren
Yeah.
turning up, and I think that's kind of missing these days. You know, with kids telly and kids dramas, that people not getting to cut their teeth earlier on, that like they would have done back then. There was those lads who were the smoking gang, as they were known. Was that because obviously you know it's a kids TV program and to show kids smoking? I'm guessing they weren't actually smoking on it. Like even though I've been told a lot of the cast actually were smoking, you know,
Oh,
off
yeah.
off camera. But yeah, you know, making sure that they look like they're actually smoking.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, I think, you touch on a really important part there because those shows were the opportunity for young actors, young directors, young everybody to really cut their teeth and make mistakes and get better. And, yeah, it's a shame that there aren't really, well, there's very little children's drama now.
Yeah,
But we did approach it, Grange Hill, as if we were making an adult drama series. I don't think we ever really thought this is a show for kids about kids. It was
yeah.
just a show.
Yeah. What I've said when I was speaking to Lee Corns, we were saying about how a lot of the times in the classroom, the cameras would be down at the kids' level rather
Right.
than was that done on purpose?
Yes, yeah,
Right.
definitely. Yeah, I mean, it was always centered around the kids, wherever there were adult scenes or scenes with adults with kids, it was always meant to feel like it was from the kids'
Yeah.
point of view. And some of the actors, yeah, Lee, definitely. But Stuart Organ,
Yeah.
really got that and really understood how to make that work as well for
Yeah.
them.
Brilliant. Now that series, the twins, the Buckfield twins, were in it for the
Oh,
first
yes,
time
Julian
together.
and Claire, yeah, yeah.
And there was a lot of like you know pretending to be one and the other one pretending to be one and like Natasha was like the evil twin, shall we say. So like there was a bit where she was supposed to be going on a date with one of the public school boys, but they convinced that it was off so the other one could go in her place to ruin it for her. Could you tell the difference between them?
No.
Right.
No. In fact, when we were rehearsing, we made them wear sort of different colored ties and things
Yeah.
just so that we have a vague chance of time. No, they were absolutely identical twins, and they were quite naughty together as well. So they used to play into being twins quite a
Right,
lot.
right, okay. And that series ended with a baseball game at a public school. I think someone said, was it the American school it was
Oh, the
filmed
American
at?
school in Pinner. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
and I was told that for some of the aerial shots there was like a cherry picker, like and I was told that on one of the lunch breaks, two of the lads went up in it messing about, and it got stuck, which added hours onto the filming.
It sounds quite likely, although those sorts of things very rarely get to you as the director. They tend to get solved before
Oh,
you
right, okay.
before you find out about them. I don't remember that. Definitely, we shot off cherry pickers because this predated drones,
Yeah, yeah.
and we couldn't afford helicopters or anything like that. So yeah, we definitely had them there. I don't remember whether we got stuck. Sounds possible.
Okay, and like I say, you did four episodes in there when it was the last four, and then you did four episodes in the next series, which was series 16. And one of the things we always say about Grange Hill, it was quite like forward thinking, and brought up storylines that not even like adult drama would look at a lot of the time. So there was one in series 16, which there was travelers
Oh yeah,
involved, and there was a travelers camp. So again,
Traveler's Girl. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
a lot of location shots again. Does a lot of research go into that, into how those things should look?
Yes, and a lot of conversation. So I spent quite a lot of hours with both her family, the girl's family, and another traveling family that were sort of reasonably local.
Uh-huh.
And in fact, we shot in one of their caravans.
Oh wow.
So
Uh,
um, and it was, again, I think the thing that Grange Hill did really well was it didn't really take sides. So we weren't looking to go, aren't these guys amazing? Or to go, these guys are awful. We
yeah,
just went, this is a life and this is a problem of traveling and getting your kid into a school and her having to make new friends, but being people are suspicious of you. And so yeah, so there was a lot of research to make sure we got it right. But I think that's probably true in most things that we do in drama, is we go to quite a lot of length to
yeah,
ensure that impartially we're producing the right look and feel for something.
yeah. And Mary, the girl who the character, the
Yeah,
traveler, she, because this was forward thinking as well, joined the girls' football team.
yeah,
And because girls' football is massive now.
yeah, yeah. Wasn't
Women's
then.
football and in schools, it's massive. I work in a school. Every few weeks, I'm taking the girls out to
Yeah,
play
great.
football. But in that, that was showing at the time was, we not that we shouldn't be having girls football, but it didn't seem a priority to Mr. Robson, and the girls sort of fought to make sure that it did become a priority. And one of the things that happened in there was a girls v boys football match. Now, the boys ultimately won the game, but is it difficult, choreographing and directing a football match?
Any sport, Neil, is incredibly difficult because fundamentally your main problem is that actors mostly are pretty rubbish at sport. The reason actors are actors is because they have other skills
Yeah,
and they can pretend to do things, but you get caught out. If you can't play football, then you can't play football. And so most of filming sport in any drama is sort of smoke and mirrors trickery to try and slide it past. I mean, they were pretty good, the kids, most better than most adults, because they do knock about all the
yeah,
time. And there was obviously quite a lot of Mickey taking between the boys and the girls.
yeah,
Um, but again, I think we felt, I mean, I remember I remember the sort of conversations at the time around how it would be received, that storyline. Whether we were just being a bit PC and a bit sort of liberal and so on and so forth. But I don't think anyone really felt it wasn't a story we should do. So yeah, I mean, yes, it was ahead of the time for sure.
yeah, definitely, definitely. And there was another big storyline. There was when one of the kids went missing. Robin Stone, played by Nina Fry,
Oh
and
yeah.
that included a night shoot at a canal
Oh
where
yeah.
where there was a bike had been found that I mean night shoots I'm guessing weren't common on Grange Hill. Um
No, but for all sorts of sort of weirdly bureaucratic reasons, really, rather than artistic reasons. So we're limited to the hours we can work
uh-huh,
kids generally, as you know, sort of children's licensing as is quite
yeah,
strict. Um, it's more difficult to herd everybody at night and keep everyone warm and safe, particularly when
yeah,
they're on vacation. Um, and it's more expensive. There's just a lot more lights, there's a lot more structure, different type of catering, everything costs more. So that show sort of veered away from night shoots.
right.
Um, and indeed veered away from location quite a lot. I mean, we had two studios that had the sets, the school sets in, and then we had what is actually the car park at Elsie Studios, sadly no longer there, just got
Yeah,
bulldozed down this
yeah,
year, was the playground, and we used to kick all the cars out, and that would be the playground. And
yeah.
then after we'd finished shooting, everyone would come back and park again in the car park. Um, but yeah, we didn't do a lot of night shoots, it's true.
So just going back to what you just said about the car park there, I was told this week, right? A lot of those facades that you see when people were walking into the school, were they there all the time, or was some of them just put up just to make it look like the
Yeah, no, they were put up. So we had
wow?
some
Didn't know
sort of
that.
wooden flats, which we call them, so scenery, which would go in front of any TV looking area, so that
Right.
yeah, so that they came in, but they came in very quickly and went out very quickly. They were
Wow. Yeah.
the
I,
clock closed. Very
I
strict.
never realized that until this week. Someone told me because for those obviously the people listening won't know this. You sent me a photograph of yourself and the cast and the crew and everyone. And I sent it on to someone who's in the photograph, and they said to me that they're all like faux wobbly things. He
Yeah.
said that they weren't real, and that blew my mind. And I just
Yeah.
assumed all that was there all the time. Like
Who was it?
uh,
Who did you send it to?
Mel Joseph, who played Lauren Phillips, Melanie Joseph.
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I sent it to her, and yeah, she said, yeah, no, none of that bit was real. That again ruining the illusion for me there. Yeah, brilliant. Okay, and then we move on to CD 17, and I've got you down for well, IMDb has got you down for 7 episodes here. Now, I always say it's not the most reliable source of information, but it will have you down for 7 because it will every episode it puts the director on there. So it's got you down for 7 for some reason. I don't know why. But anyway, so one of your first ones was when Sam and Arnie had followed a man who they suspected was involved in an illegal animal trade, animal record. Now, the animal man was played by Dickon Ashworth, who he's one of them guys who he's got one of them faces, and you see him in lots and lots of things.
Yeah.
I remember he was in Brookside when that first started.
Okay.
He played a character called Alan Partridge, funnily enough, in Brookside. Um,
Right.
but your first episode of that storyline started where the previous episode ended. It was like a proper like EastEnders bit. It carried on.
Okay.
Um, so I'm going to say, presumably, you would have been there for the previous episode, would you, or would you?
No, but I'd have been in the edit.
Ah,
So I'd
right, okay,
seen them editing it, and I will have talked through with whoever directed that on how they left it and which bit we pick up on.
right,
But also the producers, I mean, well, Christine Seacombe and Albert Barber at the time, I think. They're over all that. So
right,
we know where we've got to go with it and what we
right.
do.
Yeah, okay. One again, your first episode, the first scenes where we saw Francesca Martinez
Uh,
as Rachel Burns. Now, when you see people like Francesca now or Kevin Bishop, who was, you would have been directing,
yeah.
could you tell when they're kids? Can you tell who's got it and who hasn't, and who's going to do something with it? Or
Yeah, you can. I mean, you get it wrong sometimes. I did a children's show not long after Grange Hill called The Biz, which
uh
was
huh,
a sort of the British version of Fame,
yeah,
which was a very young Kelly Riley who was 14, I think, then in it. And we nearly recast her because we weren't sure that she was going
wow,
to cut it. And she's obviously gone on to have his major Hollywood career. So we were obviously very wrong then.
yeah,
But yes, you can tell. I mean, Francesca was unique and still is, and she was a tour de force,
Yeah,
and impossible not to like, really, and admire.
yeah,
Um, but Kev, a lot of the boys come in, they're quite young. So when they come in at sort of 11, 12, 13, they're just, remember back to when we were that age,
yeah.
they're just sort of cheeky lads at that age, really. So it's difficult to identify. You can tell the ones that have acting bones. Louisa Bradshaw Wright was another one who
Yeah,
really, could do it. Yeah, and the ones that have carried on and built careers thereafter, I guess.
yeah. But I'm going to ask you this. You don't have to answer if you don't want to. Did you have any say in Kevin Bishop being let go?
No.
Right. Okay.
No, no. So the main actors generally get cast by the producers, and they make a decision who to keep and who to go. As directors, you'll cast the guest actors or maybe the smaller parts.
Yeah.
There's some kids that we see talking in the episode, but yeah, the series regulars, we don't have any say in that.
Right. Okay. Now, in that series, big storyline of that was when they had a drama group and the lads had all left and the girls carried on without them. And the lads went back one day and they started messing about, as you've just been saying there, as lads do. And this is where Jessica took Joe's cap. Jessica Arnold, played by Amy Phillips, and Joe was at Martino.
Yeah.
And the lads all surrounded her to get it. And that then resulted in Jessica then being assaulted. Again, massive storyline for a kids' TV program to be showing. But is something like that difficult to film, knowing what the storyline is and it's kids' TV?
Two sort of questions really. I think not massively difficult to film as long as the actors are fully comfortable with where
Yeah.
you're going with it and what you're
Uh-huh.
doing. That's true of all drama, whether you're doing sort of romantic stuff at adult level
Yeah.
or any high emotional, it's important the actors get it and they feel comfortable with where you're going with it
Uh-huh.
and what's going to happen. Amy was a fairly sophisticated, quite mature young woman, really. So I
Uh-huh.
think she was uh, across it, uh, Jessica, and
Yeah.
yeah, I don't really remember there really being any problem with it, other than again, I do remember we had a lot of conversation about how far to go
Yeah.
with it. But it was interesting. It was at the beginning of the time when it was starting to be reported of assaults on girls and the sort of sexual violence towards or physical violence towards girls and women. I mean, very early days, not again like it is reported now, but it was definitely a lot of the storylines would come out of a newspaper article. So
Right.
so we'd have an article, the writers and the script editors would get together and see if there was a story there, and then we'd see if it might play, and then yeah, so they were almost all based in some real story.
Yeah. Now, is it true, do you know, that the lads didn't know who the attacker was supposed to be when that was filmed?
I generally don't remember that.
Right. Okay.
I don't.
A couple of them have said they weren't sure, but they thought that they didn't know when they
Might
filmed
be
it.
that it sounds like something we might have done.
Yeah. Yeah.
um, yeah, I mean, I think again, we're filming with young people. They can do what's on the page pretty well, but I think if they know they're the baddie, they tend to sort of play the baddie. So quite
Yeah.
often,
Yeah.
I guess we might not
Because
tell
I
them.
like a lot of and Brookside did that, with a few stories. Like a few soap operas have done that, haven't they? You
Yeah,
don't know for a while, and like you said there, that probably the reason why is because if they know it's their character, then he might do it differently, mightn't they? Along with stuff like that, there was always like stupid storylines as well. So there was the thing with the computer tennis tournament. The kids had this, but like because people who of a certain age will know what it's like when you've taken a photograph and there's a television in the background and there's always a light reflecting on it or there's always something. Is it difficult to film stuff like that when you're meant to be filming someone playing a computer game or watching telly, because you're going to get glare and stuff like that? Or
yeah,
is it easy to manage?
It's not difficult to manage, really. I mean, it is, televisions have their own, not so much now, again, because it's all digital, but televisions have their own issues without kind of boring everyone technically. We have to lock the camera to the frame rate of the TV.
All
Otherwise,
right, okay, yeah,
you get, sometimes if people are wearing stripy suits or
yeah,
checks,
yeah,
you see like a pattern on
yeah,
screen. Well, it's the same with the TV. So Scenery has a frame rate and the camera has a frame rate, and unless they're the same, they'll bounce off. So that's really one of the main issues. The lighting guys are pretty clever at getting around sort of bouncing screens off, really.
yeah,
A lot of the problem with computer games, it's still a problem filming, is we obviously have to program them to do exactly what we want when we want them to do it, because
yeah,
obviously we don't really play them. So often it's just getting someone that can actually, we take out the whole game, put our own program in that we can control. So generally, someone else is there on a handset controlling the game,
wow,
doing what it's meant to do.
yeah.
The actor is playing it, yeah.
Wow, brilliant, brilliant. And then you mentioned earlier the quiet trip to
Oh, yeah.
Germany. So you went on that one,
Oh,
but
yeah.
in something like that, because there was quite a few sort of like German actors in that as well. So who would cast
Well, we cast them.
those?
So we had a fixer in Berlin. Um, who put together the sort of where we might be able to go. I mean, bearing in mind we went across the border, this is only sort of 3 or 4 years after the Berlin Wall came
Hmm.
down. So,
Hmm.
that started as that's quite a funny story, really. Started as our guys were going to enter this European-wide choir contest,
Right.
and the Grange Hill School Choir, which was full of mostly, as you know, Sylvia Young
Yeah.
stage school kids who could all sort of sing in a fashion. So we wrote the script that they'd enter and they'd get through to the finals, and there'd be much, obviously, messing about along the way and stuff happening. And then we went out and found the locations out in East Germany and in West Germany, and we settled everything. We came back, and then Christine, who was producing it, and I went out about 4 days earlier because the other choirs, we'd got choirs from various schools
All
around.
right. Yeah.
We had an Austrian one from Vienna. We had one from Venice. We had one from Paris, one from Berlin. So we had
Wow.
these full choirs, and the idea was we'd see some of them singing, and then our guys would win. So Christine and I went out early to go and watch some of the choirs. So on the Saturday, I think it was, we sat there with the Paris Cathedral Choir,
Right. Wow.
who were just amazing. I mean, you can picture it. It was choral and beautiful. And
Yeah.
so our guys had rehearsed, you got the whole, yeah. And so we literally, Christian and I sat at a table and just rewrote the script because there's clearly no way our guys could win the competition. So yeah, but it was great fun. We took some of the cast out with us, some of the kids, some of the grown-ups. We were out there for quite a long time. It was incredibly cold. It was minus
Yeah.
20.
It looked
Uh,
freezing on there. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, it was really, really cold. And we stayed in a hotel that hadn't opened to the public yet. We were there test.
Wow.
So we had the hotel to ourselves, but they weren't really geared up for 100 sort of 50 people and cast actors and things. But it was great fun, yeah. And again, something that the BBC can do that we don't do as much of now, but it was so good for the kids as well. A lot of those kids had never left England, let alone gone
Wow.
to, East Germany and
Yeah.
seen this completely different world, different language, different people. So yeah, it was cool.
Right. And that was it also, like you say, going over the border and Josh buying a hand grenade, which
Well,
Mr. Robson had to throw into the lake.
Well, the lake. So we wrecked the lake, found this fantastic lake, and we bought the fixer bought the hand grenade and everything for us, and we had dummies made, obviously.
Yeah.
And then when we went back, the lake was entirely frozen. So he throws it, and it just skids across the lake. So we had a few goes at that and we had to get it back with the boom pole, so pulling it across the. Yeah, it really was very cold.
Brilliant. And then Mrs. Munro left that year as well, Anna Quayle. Not until she'd taken her year 11 class to a restaurant. I can't picture many teachers doing that at all. Like, but I mean, we've talked earlier about, when you did Jackanory and,
Mm.
and, and you those people you're working with. When it's someone like Anna Quayle, do you get starstruck at all, or is it just you've just got to try and push through it? Like,
No, I mean, I think Grange Hill's fairly unique. If you spend, a Tuesday directing EastEnders in the Queen Vic, and you have the entire EastEnders
yeah,
cast around you, and they're all in one place. That's a bit daunting. Um, but um, but the adults on Grange Hill were so fantastically generous
hmm
to it being about the kids. So there were very little ego and very little difficulty, and they, on the whole, and Anna particularly actually, was very keen to hear what the kids would be doing and how she should react to the kids and so on and so forth. So no, it wasn't really that daunting, and I mean, I certainly on the day one of the first block of Grange Hill, which was my first really on my own big drama or
yeah,
felt big at the time, was terrified. But by the end, I was part of the furniture, and I
yeah.
think,
And Justine Dean left that year as well. Rachel Victoria Roberts,
yeah,
and she'd been very much the face of Grange
it
Hill.
was.
Even now, as an adult, when I do my research and I look back, and I just think that must have been like a massive hole to fill for Grange Hill. I think so, when you've got someone like Justine who's done 7 or 8 years,
I
and
think every year,
all of a
though,
sudden, like,
when you think about it, has that, where do you go from here?
yeah,
I came on the back of the Zamo and all that gang were kind of a
hmm
couple of years before I got there, and Grange Hill was all about Todd, who I knew quite well, and Sue Tully and all those people. That was
yeah,
Grange Hill, and then it was Roland and
yeah,
Zamo with Grange Hill, and for us it was about making Rachel and Louisa
yeah,
and yeah, I mean all those guys be the face of Grange Hill, and it'd be
yeah,
about them. But by the time I went, the next guys were already being built in to follow up behind because it's the great thing and the weakness of a school is they've all got to leave at some point. You
yeah,
can't
yeah, of course, yeah.
forever.
Yeah. And then, we move on then to the last series you did, which was Series 18, which went on air in 1995, believe it or not. And you did 8 episodes of that. And we talked earlier about the sports. There was a lot of sports played at the beginning of that one because they'd introduced this new house system, and there was always basketball going on, or there'd be
Right, yeah.
rugby or hockey or something. And like, like you said there, a bit of choreography and directing can be difficult there. Like, but in that, what's it? Nicholas Pinnock was in a lot of those episodes. He came in as like the sixth former called Jerome.
I did.
So he was like dipping in and out, and like, it's just another someone else who's had a great career
Yeah,
since then.
he's done
Like,
well, hasn't he? Yeah.
but there was also a bit of a throwback to like the Just Say No, because there was drugs involved in this one where Anna Wright's brother Gordon had turned up and he was a dealer, and
Right.
he used Anna to like, to try
Yeah.
and
So that's
sell
right.
drugs. So that was different to Just Say No, because obviously it was all Zamo's storyline of using.
Yeah.
But then for Angel to take on this one of, the fact that kids were dealing, or, and look at it now, like it's massive in the,
Yeah.
county lines and all that. Now,
Yeah.
again, it's just another forward thinking thing there. And that also led to people turning up at Anna's flat, and because Gordon owed them money, and, the flat getting smashed up. When you've got to film something like that, is that like, right, okay, we can do what we want here, or is the, trashing and smashing up of something, is that carefully choreographed as
Yeah, I
well?
mean, the thing I think about all filming is everything is carefully choreographed and everything's built for you to smash. I mean,
Yeah,
I think the madness of that is something like London's Burning, where we'd spend a week building a set in a studio, and then the second week we'd light a match to it and burn it down, sweep it out, and then on the Monday we'd start building another set, which
yeah,
a week later we'd burn down. There, so all of that stuff where you're breaking things, those props and we'd put fake walls in and everything, so everything is carefully thought out and choreographed because at the end of the day it's, I don't want to say the word pretend, but it is pretend,
yeah,
and
yeah,
you don't want anyone to get hurt,
yeah,
and you've got to sell an idea. But you're absolutely right, there was a lot of talk actually amongst the kids, I remember then, about them all knowing people that were dealing at their schools and
yeah,
things. um, yeah, it had gone from being a rare thing to a relatively common thing. So yeah, that was a story I think we had to do.
Yeah. And you just mentioned there about not wanting people to get hurt because there was the scene where Sarah Jane was knocked off her bike by Miss Carver driving her car.
Oh yeah, God.
So there was obviously a big stunt crew there. But is it hard when you've got kids, and because Sarah Jane, played by Laura Hammett, was
Mm.
only quite young then. Is it
You're right. Yeah.
hard to get
Little.
stunt people, to play the kids, or even if you've got an adult trying to make it look like they are a child when it
Well,
happens? Like,
there are not very many, but certainly then there are stunt people who are quite small stunt people.
right,
They work all the time. They get more work than the big people because
right,
we're always trying to double kids. So yeah, again, it is a stunt person, and it's done again, with the trickery of angles and shots. You can make things look a lot worse just by
yeah,
where you put the camera and but yeah, she was quite little then. I've forgotten about Miss Carver.
yeah,
You know more about this than me. You're absolutely right. You do start to remember things once.
yeah. Brilliant. And a big thing in that episode, in that series, sorry, was when Lucy's mum was diagnosed or died from it, gone from suspected meningitis to AIDS. Now,
Yeah,
there was a HIV awareness workshop at first, which sort of led into it, but I was told that the cast actually took part in the HIV awareness workshop before it was filmed. So they knew, but it was revealed, when Lucy's mum died, it was revealed that she died from AIDS, which again is a massively brave storyline to take
yeah.
on.
I mean, I think again, just sort of, it's a bit scratchy my memory, but I think we'd always felt we should do something with AIDS, and we weren't sure whether this was the right way to go because this is sort of 10 years after the peak of HIV AIDS, in the mid 80s and
Yeah,
so forth. But again, I think these kids were all at stage school. They were all surrounded by, artistic people, or everyone knew someone that had not necessarily died but had HIV or whatever. So it was quite close to, I think, the artistic community's heart anyway, aside from being obviously a global question.
yeah,
Um, and I think it's absolutely one of those stories that really benefited again from the Grange Hill treatment because you can do it from a kid watching it happen, which somehow feels much more humane and less pointed than actually just doing the adult story.
yeah,
Um, and yeah, I remember that story. I was quite pleased with that story. I thought that
yeah.
worked well.
What when you watch it back, it's true because it shows a lot of misconceptions and ignorance that
Mm,
people had towards HIV and AIDS, like the bit with the swimming pool
yeah,
scene when the kids, when Lucy got in the pool, even though it hadn't been her that had died of AIDS, and and she didn't have HIV or anything, the
yeah.
kids still wouldn't get in the swimming pool with her, which is I'm guessing kids would have reacted, or people certainly would have reacted like that.
Well, definitely kids, eh? Because kids are cruel and straight on the nose.
Yeah,
There's nothing about. But I think, that's drama at its best can just put things out there, can't they? And leave it up to the viewer to take a
yeah,
view on it. But can, without sounding old-fashioned, can educate people in a way that just being on the news or a newspaper can't do,
yeah,
because it's human, isn't it? And we've
yeah,
all got a view on that somewhere.
yeah. And so that was sort of like your last thing on Grange Hill. But was it difficult to direct kids? Because they always say, you shouldn't work with kids and animals. Like, so was it
I've
difficult to direct them? Like,
No, I've got to say the Grange Hill years were my happiest years
wow, right.
directing. The kids on the whole were fantastic. The adults, as I say, were very generous on the whole. And particularly, I looked at that photograph I sent you,
Yeah.
where I look about 12 and, it's 38 years ago,
Yeah.
I've been directing now for 40 years nearly.
Yeah.
And, um, I kind of look at, you work with big casts and big actors now on big shows, and it's way more stressful and way more combative
Yeah.
and controversial than Grange Hill ever was really. And also I was very lucky to have two amazing producers. Christine Seacombe was so kind to me and supportive, and Albert really taught me to direct drama.
Yeah.
He taught me lots. So no, they were very happy days, and amazingly, we shot it with the BBC OB team, which I don't know if anyone's mentioned to you, but it was shot with the same people that do football and rugby and cricket, the sports
Right.
people. It was not shot by drama teams.
Yeah.
And because it was their only drama, they were really into it and they loved it and they worked really hard on it. So, on the whole, it was an incredibly pleasant
Yeah.
atmosphere, really.
Brilliant. But was there ever anything that you filmed on Grange Hill where you thought they're not going to let us show this? Was there ever a time where you thought anything like that?
The Traveller stuff actually was the
Right.
only time where I thought the BBC were going to kick against it because
Right.
everything still has to go. I mean, it's much more strict now through compliance. I'm sure it's a word you heard. So everything has to fit an impartiality. And, we set out just to tell a story of how difficult it is for a kid to fit into a school if you're moving around all the time and if people don't like you before they've even met you for unknown
Mhm.
reasons. But even by doing that, it's difficult to imagine now, but it was a time when it was in the news quite a lot, travelers, and they were settling onto Greenlands, and there was a lot of resistance, and the more right-wing papers were whipping up a sort of,
Yeah.
feeling against them. And so, yeah, I think we generally weren't certain whether we were going to get away with it. But again, BBC at that time was very and again you know the head of children's television, Anna Hume, at the time was very supportive of Grange Hill and very much believed that this is how we tell stories to kids and get them to understand the world is just by straight down the line. No, don't don't put it in cotton wool, just do it.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Brilliant. And then, so, like, you've mentioned a couple of things that you did after Grange Hill. So we'll talk about a few of them if that's okay. Because obviously you've mentioned the biz, but you did This Life.
30 years to transmission today, this
Yeah,
week.
is it? Wow. Is it? Wow. Because that was,
Yeah.
I mean, This Life, I'm going to say this life passed me by, right?
Ah,
And I don't know why. Like, because I was 21, right? So it was the
made for you.
perfect thing for me. So I don't know
I'm
why
gonna
or
say,
how.
but I've got lots of mates from sort of, forgive me from using the big term, but the North. And I think probably it didn't speak to a lot of people in the North
Right.
because it was just about, overprivileged London lawyers. And I think probably it didn't really reach out initially anyway. It built up a head of steam. I mean, it was an extraordinarily difficult show to make, and the BBC hated it.
Wow.
They wanted to sack us all. They wanted to stop filming. They didn't want us to carry on. They just thought it was a disaster. Obviously, until it won BAFTA,
Yeah.
and then it was all their idea.
Yeah. But like we talked about people cutting their teeth, but like Jack Davenport and Andrew
Yeah.
Lincoln and obviously
Oh my God.
Louisa
Yeah, all of
Bradshaw
them.
White was there
Yeah.
again. Yeah. One thing I need to talk to you about, The Knock. And the only reason I've mentioned it is because people who've listened to the podcast will know I love Rick Mail, right?
Ah,
Like just one of my all-time heroes.
yeah.
And what was it like working with
My
him? Like,
God. Insane. Insane. I absolutely loved him. Yeah, I knew Rick a little bit. At the time I was doing Grange Hill, I was writing a bit for sort of the alternative comedy scene, so I sort of knew Rick a little bit. But
right,
yeah, we were in Ghana, so we spent a month out in West Africa with him on location. And I think I didn't stop laughing for a month, really. I mean, he is outrageous, but he was very, very insecure because it was a proper serious acting role. It
yeah,
wasn't a comedy role. And he'd not long previously had the accident, so
right.
he was a bit variable remembering lines. He would
Mhm.
just dry every now and then for no reason, just forget. But oh my God, just what a genius, man. Yeah,
Yeah,
yes.
I always say I don't get upset that he's passed away. I get angry because there's no one else. Like in my view, there's no one, and the way it was, and the fact that probably was linked to the accidents and all that. But I just get angry that there's no one else like that. There's no, as you say there, a force of nature, and there's just
I don't know that I think Rick will mind. Rick's one of those people that definitely live life in the fast lane,
yeah,
in every aspect of life, and good luck to him. I think probably he's laughing somewhere. And
yeah, yeah, love that. But also Tony Armour Trading
yeah,
was in that, and Tony Armour Trading had been in Grange Hill.
not with
No,
me.
no, much earlier on, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
He'd been a teacher, Mr. Peter McCartney, not Paul McCartney.
Was he really? Oh,
Yeah,
brilliant. Yeah, of course,
Peter McCartney.
brother of Joan Armour Trading.
Yeah, 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 of course, yeah. And you mentioned London's burning, but there was
Yeah.
clocking off a northern. I think Manchester, wasn't it? I think
Yeah,
clocking off.
Manchester that was, yeah. Yeah.
David, but obviously a couple of Scousers, David Morrissey, Gillian Kearney.
Yeah, Dave, yeah, amazing actor. Yeah, so David and the very, very first thing, which will speak more to you, which is not on my CV, that I did when my first 3 weeks of training was I did bread.
Did you? Oh,
So I think it might have even been season 1 or 2, but with that, yeah, up in Liverpool.
yeah, because that was huge bread. But and
Time of my life.
I don't think people realize how big bread actually was.
Oh,
What, Sunday night, and you're getting what, 18,
yeah,
19 million viewers.
yeah,
Like
yeah, fantastic. Yeah.
I don't.
And my wife did 51st State, which was up in Liverpool as
Yeah.
well. So
Wow, brilliant.
yeah.
Brilliant. Bad Girls, another massive program, and something I need to talk about, a short film called Hunter,
Oh yeah.
which I believe you not only directed, but you were the writer of
Yeah, yeah.
as
Yeah.
well. So when you're making a short movie, obviously for the BBC you're getting funding from them, ITV you're getting funding from them, but when it's
Yeah.
a short movie, where does your funding come from there?
You're absolutely right. I mean, you scratch around quite a lot to get it. It was not a massively expensive film, but it was expensive enough. I think it cost 25 grand or something.
Right.
I literally patched into a friend of a friend of a friend whose father was a city banker, whose son wanted to be a film producer, and I
Right.
just struck lucky that his dad, I think probably 25 grand was just spare cash in his pocket, and it was his way of his son, producing his first film. So yeah, we shot that in Oxford, um, and yeah, did quite well, won some awards, and it was fun to do. Yeah,
Brilliant. Brilliant. And you also directed 2 episodes of Hotel Babylon.
I did.
I was looking at the cast of that. Tamsin Outhwaite and Max Beasley. Dexter Fletcher, who,
Yeah,
director in his own right.
he is. He's a bigger director than me now.
So
Yeah.
when you film with someone like him, do you like collaborate with him, or is it
No,
just
he was
your
just he
vision?
was very much an actor then, and there was no sign that he was going to go on and be a director
Right?
at all. Yeah, I mean, he talked a bit about why one shot over another every now and then, but there was he never really talked about directing at all. He was just I think he played like the bell guy, the front
Yeah,
desk type guy, and yeah,
yeah,
that's it. Yeah, and that was and John Sessions did that as well.
right, yeah,
Was in that.
brilliant. And a couple of other Grange Hill alumni there, Emma Pearson, Michael Obiora. I don't think they were there at your time, but
No, no,
a
they
bit
weren't.
more there. And Wild at Heart.
Yeah,
So is that was filmed in South Africa?
it was. Yeah,
So how long did you go out there for then?
about 5 months at a time.
Wow, brilliant.
So yeah, it sounds brilliant, doesn't it? It was brilliant for for the very first week of the first season I did it. It was like I can't believe it. My office is in the middle of a game reserve, and the elephants walk past your window and the
Yeah.
giraffe and the zebras out there. By the end of week 2, you're just going, get the elephants out of my way. You get so used to the environment you're in. But yeah, that was good fun. Steve Tompkins, Amanda Holden,
Yeah.
and
Haley Mills.
Hayley Mills.
Excuse
Yeah,
me.
old school. And
Yeah.
yeah, I mean that was hard because that was animals.
Yeah.
There's a lot of animals. Yeah.
Yeah. Brilliant. You've done over the years, 22 episodes of The Bill
Yeah.
throughout, and Waterloo Road, which was sort of seen as like a predecessor to Grange Hill, but for like, but it's a more adult audience, obviously.
Yeah, I did the first ones in Scotland, yeah, which were a bit.
Ah, right, okay.
Yeah.
Now, a lot of people say, and it is true, there's a well-travelled path from Grange Hill to Albert Square. Um, and you're part of that because like
I am, yeah,
you've mentioned
definitely.
these tenders earlier on. You've done
Yeah, yeah,
28 episodes of that over the years.
yeah.
Well, you've directed people that were in Grange Hill, because I was having a look there. Not necessarily, it might not necessarily have been there at your time when you were
No,
at Grange Hill, but Todd Carty,
Todd and Sue,
Susan
yeah,
Sully,
yeah.
Patsy Palmer was
That's a yeah,
an extra in Grange Hill.
yeah, no, yeah, yeah.
But a lot. Bill Treacher,
Oh,
um,
lovely built, yeah.
Mark Monero, Carl Pizzi, Brian Croucher, Shane Ritchie. Now, not a lot of people know it's Shane Ritchie. Shane Ritchie is an uncredited extra in the very first episode
Ah,
of Grange Hill. Letitia Dean
Tish,
and
yeah,
Tim
still
Bentinck as well. But like you say, because people, it is one of those things of, everyone that was in Grange Hill went into EastEnders and,
Yeah, well,
I've
it's a
just,
natural path for so many reasons. I mean, obviously, it's set in a not dissimilar world, accents,
uh-huh,
social area. But of course, it's also we were neighbours at Elstree,
yeah,
so the EastEnders sets were next door, so everyone knew everyone. So it was a
yeah.
fairly thing, yeah.
So are you there, like when you're filming Grange Hill? Say, someone come and have a look at me directing because
Oh, I was,
I could go
yeah.
there.
Well, that was exactly it. So again, it doesn't really exist now, but the BBC, there used to be sort of an unspoken career route that you did Grange Hill, then you got onto EastEnders, and that was half hour. Then you got onto the Casualty,
Yeah,
which was 1 hour. Then you got two episodes of a series. Then you got onto film drama, which
yeah,
was 1 hour but on film. And then you got your own series. So that was what everyone sort of aimed for.
right.
Um,
Because Casualty and Holby were filmed in the same building, where the outside
no,
was. Oh,
no,
right,
never,
okay,
never in the same building or the same city.
right. So we could, but
No, so Holby was a converted office block. So I did the very first episodes of Holby. I set
right.
Holby up from scratch. That's an office block at Elstree.
That's what I
Uh,
meant. Sorry, when I said the same building, Holby had some of the
oh,
same outsides of Grange Hill.
oh, sorry, I thought you meant
Yeah, yeah,
casualty.
sorry, yeah, sorry,
Yes, it would have, yeah, because
yeah,
it was the same
Elsie, yeah,
building. Yeah, same building.
yeah. So
Yeah.
where was Casualty filmed then?
Casualty, well, very, very originally was in London. Then it was in Bristol
Right,
for 15 years, and it's been in Cardiff now for 12 years, I think.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so because Neil Rogers, who was in Grange Hill very early days, sort of late 70s, early 80s, he is an ambulance driver in in the
Uh,
Holby City now. He's like, an extra there. Like, now I wanted to talk to you about the dumping ground, which was a Jacqueline Wilson
yeah.
thing. It was like the follow up
Other
to,
one from Tracy Beaker,
yeah,
yeah.
right, okay. So again, directing kids,
Yeah,
again,
yeah.
but yeah, I mean that must have, because obviously Tracy Beaker was huge, like a massive, massive program. When you've got something like that, and then you're getting basically the sequel to it, is there pressure on you then to think that this has got to be
Yeah,
big?
yeah. I mean, pressure to make it work and to be
Yeah,
successful. I think it was a bit like it was a change of management at the show. So I came with new producer
uh-huh.
and new face of the show. Um, and I think it was a bit like we've mentioned with Grange Hill of sort of, you said goodbye to Roland Zamo and all the
Yeah,
big faces and you start again with a new bunch. It was a bit like that, really. It was the same setup. It was a house that housed kids.
yeah,
But sort of introducing some newer kids into that. And I'd worked with Connor on London's Burning, so who played the sort of housemaster.
uh-huh.
So that was a sort of relatively easy for me. I mean, the hard bit is it was very fast to shoot, so we worked very, very quickly.
Right,
That was really the pressure on that show was the speed of the stuff we had to make was quick.
right, yeah. And then there was another short movie which you were the director and producer of, called The Library.
Yeah, that was sort of a favor to a friend really who'd written a script and I said I'd shoot it for him. So and I'd just done a play in London, and the guy that had produced the play was interested in producing film. So I said, well, you come and produce this with me and I'll show you what to do. And so we did that, which was fine. It was
Yeah, yeah.
fun.
And then I want to ask you about this one just because of the name of the program. I've never heard of it before, but it's called Rebel Cheer Squad. Now, obviously, this isn't a video podcast, but you look like you nearly threw up when I mentioned that.
Yeah, yeah. So that was a Netflix BBC co-production for an American company, which was tried really to introduce, cheering.
Yeah,
Uh, I don't know, America, it's a big deal for kids, particularly girls.
cheerleading.
They
Yeah,
have
yeah, yeah,
squads and they do
yeah,
it's acrobatics or whatever,
yeah,
gymnastics by any other name. But so they tried to introduce this TV series, which was sort of a bit of a detective show. Come these girls that were in a girls' school that were
right.
doing this cheerleading. Um, Not my finest hour, I think. Fair to say. I mean, it's and to be fair to the show, I think it's done okay, but it was a show aimed at young teenagers in the style of, it was very funky and out there with lots of sort of very fast cuts and stuff. And
Yeah,
probably I'm just a little bit too old to
right. Okay,
invent the wheel now.
okay. So, is there? Are you working on anything at the moment that you can tell us about? Then,
Not no, I can't tell you about it.
all right,
I am working for the Arts Council of Malta at the moment,
right.
so I am working managing two feature films that
All
they've
right.
did,
Wow.
which are shooting. One is shooting as we speak, and the other one starts shooting in the summer. So I'm sort of exec producing those really. I directed a play in London last year, and I'm looking to probably do another play towards the end of this year. So that's sort of,
Yeah.
I'm kind of enjoying theatre at the moment, really. So I
Oh,
think
I was going to ask you which do you prefer?
they're very different beasts. I
Yeah,
think the theatre, you have so little control in theatre, which is a sort of, television's absolutely about control. You can control every twitch of an eye,
yeah,
every moment you can choose. I can sit at the back of a cinema with a film of mine and I can literally go cry, and I know the audience will cry, laugh, and they'll laugh,
yeah,
sigh. I know what they'll do. But in theatre, you make the thing and then you put it on, and then that's it. Your children have to play, and
yeah,
if you get the lines or screw it up or get it wrong, nothing you can do. So I quite like that. I quite like that.
yeah,
But also it's much freer, so I'm
yeah,
interested in theatre, which is we can tell stories that don't have to go through compliance, or that, TV channels are terrified they can tell. So
yeah.
yeah.
But because obviously, with my research being from IMDb, I wouldn't have had any of your theatre
Uh,
credits down. So, have you done any sort of big shows or worked with anyone that we would know in when you've been doing theatre? Then,
Yeah, well, I did David Hare play 5 years ago with Peter Davidson, who was
all
Doctor
right,
Who.
yeah, yeah,
So that was the last one. Uh, I did a small play last year called The Still Room, which didn't have anyone famous in it, but did very well, which was
yeah,
nice. And yeah, I've done a couple of Shakespeare's in various theatres in London, and I've never really pursued the West End. I've never really been interested in doing the big kind of big theatres. I do have enough big TV to not worry about the big theatres too much. But
yeah,
and also I don't want to be away filming for
yeah.
weeks and weeks and weeks anymore. I leave that up to my missus.
Brilliant. Well, Nigel, we are sort of coming towards the end of the
Yeah.
interview now, and I've got a few questions, and the same few questions I always ask at the end of every
Okay.
episode, and they are like sort of Grange Hill related.
Okay.
Um, so a few years ago there was talk of a Grange Hill movie in the works. Phil Redmond's written it. We haven't heard anything about it for a while, so at the moment we're assuming it might not be happening. But as well as I do, Grange Hill was massive. So, what do you think of the idea of a Grange Hill movie?
I think it's probably dead in the water, because I think the main problem with feature films now is that they don't return enough income for the investors. And, certainly nostalgically, we can say great, but when we think about, I don't know, maybe this is slightly controversial, but the Grange Hill we're talking about was those first sort of 16, 17, 18 series, you know, with the best love and will in the world. When Phil moved it back to Liverpool and it started to get more sidelined, it lost its prominence.
Uh-huh.
And I don't know that it's a show that would have, I've got kids in their early 30s. I don't know that they would really know what it is now,
Right.
So it's a problem with feature films. However, I think there could well be an argument for something like Netflix to do a 2 hour
Yeah.
special, but you couldn't do it on the BBC anymore because they just wouldn't put up with the sort of storylines and
Yeah.
the things we do now. So it'd have to be one of the streamers, I think. I know about, oh, time flies by, doesn't it? I think maybe 7 or 8 years ago that there was definitely some talk about
Yeah.
reinventing it and launching it with a feature film length. I don't know whether it was intended to go to the cinemas or whether it was just a feature length to go on to BBC One
Yeah.
to launch it. But yeah, nothing's.
Yeah.
I haven't heard any more from that.
Yeah. Okay. So, you worked on it for 4 years. So did you have a favorite character from Grange Hill at all? Was there anyone where you just thought, that character's great. They've got great storylines or anything like that?
Think I loved Francesca. I just thought that was such a brave
Hmm.
decision on her part, and indeed on ours a bit. Um, to come into that, and I just thought she sort of livened everything up and really stirred those sort of East End kids a bit that they
Yeah.
made me think about quite a lot. And yeah, I thought she was great fun. Uh, Louisa has been a lifelong mate of mine, so I still am in touch with Louisa. I've sort of you know, done everything EastEnders with her and all sorts
Yeah.
of shows with Louisa over the years. So I guess I was always sort of slightly partial to that. But I guess you do always come back to Rachel, don't you? You always come back to that central blonde bombshell East End girl that
Yeah.
everyone sort of abused in some way or another. So yeah, would be it.
Brilliant. Okay. So the final question then, Nigel, is why do you think there's still such affection for Grange Hill?
I think oh my God, that's a really hard question, isn't it? I think there is a love of nostalgia a bit.
Hmm.
I think it was you said it when we were talking at the beginning. We grew up with Grange Hill as absolutely part of our life.
Yeah.
It wasn't something you dipped in and out of. I'm sure like you, if it was Grange Hill Day, there was no homework, no kicking the ball in the park. You were at home waiting for it. And if we were all lucky enough to have reasonably okay parents that didn't stop us, then it was proper stuff. You talked about it in the playground the next day, everyone knew the characters. It was part and parcel. And it's exactly as you say, there were so few channels that
Yeah.
people weren't distracted by anything else. So I think we've sort of grown up with those characters. I mean, it's hard to imagine anyone of my sort of age who doesn't know who Zamo is or, you know, Roland and
Yeah.
can still do the voices and everything else. So I think they're quite formative. And I also think, that we've talked about the storylines were brave and they were subjects that mattered to kids.
Yeah.
And um and I think that they didn't see anywhere else. So I
Yeah.
think, they were stuff that we talked about it at school and whether or not you were cruel kids at school or not, you did talk about what was going on
Yeah.
and then to make that and have those conversations about can we do this? Should we do this? And not have anyone go, oh, well, that might offend some people, but just go, no, let's just put it out there. If they're offended, they'll be offended. And of course, thousands of people were.
Yeah. Yeah.
We had an endless stream of complaints of, that we were ruining the minds of the young people. I think our view was that we were doing the opposite.
Yeah. I mean, well, I've said this before on here. I think one of the reasons my parents were happy with me watching it was because of the subjects that it tackled. Because I know I speak for a lot of people here because it opens up conversations, then, doesn't it? I can remember my mum asking me if I'd ever been offered drugs, I can vividly remember that conversation happening.
Yeah.
So yeah, so it did sort of, open up things, and for me, as quite a, a naive child that I
Yeah.
was, I
Well, we
was
all
such a,
were though, weren't we?
yeah,
Because
it's
we
just,
didn't have any information elsewhere. And I think you're absolutely right. I think also it did enable our parents to have conversations with us. They weren't quite brave enough or
yeah,
skilled enough or able enough to tackle and, puberty questions and, stuff. Certainly my parents were, a bit careful about all that stuff, but, they'd watch that or you'd ask questions after and it, yeah, exactly as you say, opened up conversations and,
yeah,
I think we're missing it really. That's something along those lines now.
yeah,
There we go.
definitely, definitely. Well,
Right.
Nigel, thank you so much for coming on. It's been brilliant, brilliant
Well,
talking to you.
I hope there's something in there you can
Oh
use.
no, definitely, definitely. It's been great speaking to you, and
So,
not just about Grange Hill, but your other stuff you've done in the industry as well. It really has been brilliant. I've loved it. So
great.
thank you
It's
once
great to
again
meet you. Take
so
care, Neil.
much. Yeah, yeah. So anyone that's listening, I'll speak to you next time. Cheers. Thanks. Bye
Ciao.
bye.